Now, who's got questions for either Sandy or myself? Peggy.
Where's your microphone?
My microphone's in my tie. We have a creative director, Tommy Collier, who is, if he doesn't border on genius, he is genius. He does wonderful work. And he's got my microphone in my tie, so I don't have it clipped on or have him going with those dumb things hanging around my ear. And Sandy's got to start wearing a tie. You see, she's got a dumb thing attached to her ear.
Put it in her diamonds.
Put it in her diamonds. The microphone's too small. Who's got questions? There, over here, Brian. Peter. Good on you, mate.
Yeah, it seems that that first question, most people struggle with and spend a lifetime.
Say it again.
Most people struggle for sometimes a lifetime figuring out who they are. I think that's a really big question. Can you give some thoughts on that, like on making your way towards understanding?
We're going to cover that. I will, but rather than answer the question right now, as soon as the question's over, we're getting into that, we will answer it. See, you're a spiritual being. That's who you are. You are pure, unadulterated spirit. You are an extension, an expression of God. Whatever your concept of God is, we see God as everything. The all-knowing power, the all-powerful, all-knowing, omnipresent. And you're a spiritual, you're a spiritual expression. And as such, all knowledge is with you. You have all knowledge. You have all power. You just don't believe it. And to the degree that we believe it, we have it. And the trick of life, I see, is developing our belief system. Our belief system is based upon our evaluation of something. And frequently, if we reevaluate a situation, our belief about that situation will change. It took me 9.5 years to figure that out. I was sitting having something to eat with Val Vanderwall. He was a marvelous mentor of mine. And I had been reading the Bible, the New Testament, the Old Testament, the Book of Mormon, the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, the Torah. I mean, I was seriously studying all this because there's only two sources of reference you can go to find out about yourself. One's science and the other's theology. And they all teach you essentially the same thing. They come at it from different angles. And in everyone, everywhere, they tell you got to believe. Belief is an absolute prerequisite. If you don't believe it, it ain't going to happen. Well, I'm thinking, how do you believe? I mean, I'd ask somebody, how do you believe? Well, I don't know. How do you believe? I was having something to eat with him one day in the restaurant. I can still see the two of us sitting there. And in idle conversation that come out, he said, our belief system is based upon our evaluation of something. And frequently, if we reevaluate a situation, our belief about that situation will change. Well, it was just like rockets going off in my head. I got him to repeat what he said, and I realized that's why my life had changed. I was studying this nonstop, everything I could get my hands on, so I was continually reevaluating who I was. And because I continually reevaluate, my belief kept changing, it kept changing, it kept changing. And of course, my results kept changing. My results were a reflection of my own belief. I just know that if I get an idea, I can execute that idea. I don't know how long it's going to take me. I don't know where I'm going to get the resources, but I do know it's going to happen. That's what William James said, believe and your belief will create the fact. We'll get more into who I am and as we get into this. There's a question here. That is the great secret of life that people want to keep searching for.
My question is, I remember like being a kid and people saying, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I would draw this total blank. Like, I don't even know what I'm having for dinner, you know?
Hold that away from your mouth just a little bit, yeah.
I was saying when we were kids and we were asked, where do you want to be in 5 years? And I would just draw this blank, like, I don't even know what I want for dinner. What am I going to do with 5 years? And when I think now about goals, it feels very shallow to think, I wasn't raised that way, it feels very shallow to think about monetary things, material things. And I'm just wondering, like, what are questions that you ask yourself beyond, you know you want a nice house or you want to have some security in life, but I guess I'm looking for questions to ask myself that make me feel more of an emotional connection to it.
Well, First of all, I would suggest you understand money a little better than you do. You've got to take the time, I believe, to sit and totally relax and ask yourself, what do I really want? And you'd probably do it at the same time every day. First of all, I think you should decide on what your purpose in life is. Why you're here. Why do you think you're here? What is your purpose? My purpose is to live and work in a prosperous environment that encourages productivity and pleasure so that I can continually improve the quality of my service for my family, my company, my community, my nation, and ultimately the world. That's my purpose. Now, it took me a long time to get that, but I got it. And I think you have to have a purpose. Then, once you get your purpose straight, why are you here? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? That's not a goal, that's a purpose. Then when you choose goals, the goal should be on purpose. If the goal's not on purpose, you shouldn't want it. Like I have all kinds of opportunities presented to me because I meet so many people, I know so many people all over the world that I'm forever offered opportunities where I could earn all kinds of money and I turn it down because I'm not interested in just the money. I'm interested in earning money and I earn a lot of it. And I give away a lot of money. Like, I think you're a channel for stuff to flow through. So my goal has to be on purpose. So then you ask yourself, well, what do I want? You see, I think probably everybody wants something, but when it comes to the surface, they don't even let it stay there long enough to give it serious consideration because they don't think they can get it. They haven't got the money, they haven't got the resources, they don't know how, all reasons why they can't. People spend more time thinking of why they can't do something than they do on thinking on how they can. So you've got to note that if you want it, how you're going to get it, where the resources are going to come from are irrelevant. When you want something, you got to get on the frequency that it's on. Nothing's created or destroyed. So when you get on the frequency that it's on, you'll attract everything you require. Now we'll cover that more as we go through some of the lesson. I hope that helps. And you shouldn't want something shallow. You want to realize that you are magnificent beyond description. There's something phenomenal about you. And you want to sit and get serious. And don't pay attention to most people around you because they don't think that much. And you got to let that come to the surface of your mind. And you got to nail something you really want. And if it's right out of your reach, you have no idea, then you're into it. And if it scares the daylights out of you, you know you're on your right track. Okay? Yeah.
Hi, Bob. My name is Essie. I have two questions. The first part of the question is about timing. Could you talk about how timing has to do with the goal creation? And the second part is setbacks. Like in the process of goal creation, you hit a roadblock. Like how do you stay focused at all times? And if you hit a setback, how do you get back on track?
Well, first of all, in the time factor, everything happens by law. The law of gender decrees all seeds have a gestation or an incubation period. Northcote Parkinson, one of his laws, he says work expands to fill the time allotted for it. If you give yourself too long, it'll take you all that time to do it. I believe in sense of urgency. Give yourself a short period of time. But understand you're guessing. If you were to have a baby, it's approximately 280 days from the moment of conception to birth. We didn't always know that. I remember Earl Nightingale doing a radio show on that one time. There was a sect of people that believed the woman got pregnant when she looked at a certain range of mountains. Now you laugh at that, but there was a time when we didn't know. We didn't know how long it took wheat to grow or how long it took a carrot to grow. We didn't know any of this stuff, but we developed an awareness. Well, we had to become aware that there was a gestation period for the birth of a baby. And stop and think about it. The sexual activity, the birth of a baby, they're so totally different in nature and so far apart. How the hell did they ever get it together? You see, that takes an awareness. Well, all seeds have a gestation or an incubation period. No one knows what the gestation period is for an idea. An idea is a spiritual seed. You pluck it out of the no thing and create it in your mind. An idea is a thought or a collection of thoughts that's directed toward a purpose. So you're guessing at the date. You'll usually guess fairly accurately. I have seen maybe 2 or 3 times in the last 50 years where they guessed it right to the day. But it's unusual. You can be out as much as a year, 2 years. I'm a couple of years on mine right now. But I can see it happening. So now the roadblock, understand it's the roadblocks that cause you to stretch. It's the roadblocks that cause you to grow. It was just a, slide downhill all the way. I mean, there would be no work. There'd be no growth. The goal is not to get. That is not the purpose of a goal, to get stuff. Getting stuff is rather a simple thing. The purpose of the goal is to grow. You've got to raise awareness. You've got to grow. You've got to be a greater individual. You've got to be more aware of who you are as you go after the bigger goals. So the roadblocks they're sent to strengthen you, test you. Okay? And if it's a big roadblock, I sort of like it, because it's tough. The simple things are not much fun. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Bob and Sandy. This is incredible. I want to share what happened to me about 3 or 4 months ago. I've been going to every year seminar for the last 3 years and haven't missed any. What happened is I had an idea, and every day something urged me to take another step, and I just want to share with how the universe works. And I kept taking another step and another step, and all of a sudden something magical happened. Now, what I did was be very relaxed in thinking about this idea, and would always spend time on my own. But I would have never learned it if I hadn't taken a course called Thinking into Results, and Chad is my director in that, and going to your seminars. What you do is you make us think beyond us. We are spiritual, and if we're God's creation, we can do anything. So I am excited to even expand even further. Thank you so much for what you do for us.
My pleasure. Well, you know, Sandy really gets all the credit for thinking into results. She was coming to the seminar, and she was on the board of a number of companies, and she was spending a lot of time in boardrooms where they were, discussing these big problems, and she found that a number of the executives were butting heads against each other. They didn't seem to work, and she thought if they only had this information, they would solve their problems so much faster. And that's what caused her to start putting the idea of thinking into results together. And she knew in the area of what I knew, so what she did was create questions, the answer to which would solve many of the problems that she was running into a boardroom. And that's what thinking into results is. There was not a script that was written. We would sit, she'd ask me a question, I'd give her the answer, and it was all filmed. And then, when it was done, she and I sat down and we made the action planner for it. And it is an excellent program. So I'm glad you recognize that. Sandy did a phenomenal job on that, What else we got? Yeah.
I have a question for you, Bob. What is some advice you would give to people that have to separate themselves from their families in order to achieve their goals because of where their families choose to keep themselves in life?
I'm not sure if I heard that question properly.
So, what advice would you give to people that have to separate themselves from their families because of where how their families choose to live life and the mindsets, like the people that have to separate themselves in order to be able to achieve the goals that they want to achieve?
Well, I've had to do that for periods of time, and I did it. If I'd have followed everybody's advice that was around, relatives and friends and neighbors, I wouldn't have done it, but I did. And I've got a phenomenal relationship with my children, and I think they benefited from my growth. In fact, I think my entire family has benefited from my growth, not just my immediate family, but it's spread out. I've lived long enough to see the result of that. I think your first responsibility is to grow. You look after your family, make sure they don't want for anything, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you've got to always be there. That's my own experience. I don't know if that helps.
Yes, that answers it. Thank you.
Good.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
Do you ever read? Okay. Do you ever feel that your physical experiences are like catching up to where you've already been?
Yeah. You've been there and you're catching up to it, yeah. Well, you see, nothing's created or destroyed. You can go there mentally before you get there physically. It's called precognition. Precognition. Yeah. You've been there. You think, yeah. It's a phenomena, mental phenomena, but it's very real. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting point. Been there lots of times. Go ahead. You can go there deliberately, too. You can learn that. Go ahead.
My question is, I usually hear you reference 97% of people don't understand this material and only 3% understand it. Do you believe that number will stay the same in the future, or what do you see with this material, say, for example, 100 years from now, or even, say, more into the future?
No, I believe it'll change. I believe it is changing. I think it's changed. In fact, I don't think I know it has changed dramatically since I started working at this. Now, keep in mind, I've been at it a long time. 58 years is a long time. When I first started, there was no recorded material. I mean, and there was the self-help books. There was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Carnegie, Power of Positive Thinking by in New York. What's it? Norman Vincent Peale, yeah, Marble Arch Church. And Think and Grow Rich. But there wasn't very many of them, and they weren't bestsellers. They were fairly popular, but they were also way out of the box. Today, self-help books are bestsellers all over the world. Today, there's seminars going on all over the world. Now, a lot of them I don't think are very good. I think they're run by people who just want to earn some money. They really haven't learned a whole lot, but they're out there selling. I believe we've got some of the best material you'll ever find. And we are all over the world with it. And that's our objective. So do I believe those numbers will change? I think they're changing. I don't know how much they've changed, and I don't know what to degree, but I do believe they're changing. We reach so many people today. The internet it's everywhere. Like, I've got a studio in my backyard. The studio is closer to my back door than that wall. I can broadcast all over the world from there, multiple cameras. I got them coming out of the ceiling. Scott, who's in the back, God, you got to hear his story. I got to get you to tell the story over the weekend. He's from Manchester in England. He set a goal when he was 13. He was going to work with me. He is our studio director. He knows how to take that place apart and put it together. Off his phone, he can control cameras in my backyard in the studio. This is like magic. And we can broadcast worldwide from my own backyard. That's an indication we're going in the right direction. We're reaching so many more people. So I think the numbers are changing. I don't know what they are, but I think they're changing dramatically. Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll take one more. Maybe questions for Sandy. I'm just answering these. The first thing on my list, on my gratitude list, and I noticed her looking in my gratitude book. I just saw that. She just thought she'd, oh yeah, it's interesting. I know what you're doing. First thing, Sandy's financial genius. That's the first thing I'm grateful for every morning, because she has literally changed our company. No question about it. You got one there?
Thank you very much. Very good speech. What advice would you give to a person who has set a goal and has failed at achieving that goal?
That's good. That's not a bad thing. I failed lots of times. You don't learn from your successes, you learn from your failures. You get up and go at it again. So you're not a failure until you quit. Failing is not hitting the mark, but that doesn't mean you're a failure. You failed, but you don't become a failure. The only time you failure is if you quit. You don't quit. You'd have to shoot me to stop me. I mean, there's no quitting. That's not part of the deal. There's no exit strategy. You know where you're going, that's where you're going to get there. Fail a number of times. I've failed miserably. If you fail big enough, it's exhilarating. I mean, I've had some real beauties. Does that help? You just get up and get going, and don't you dare lay down. And I don't care if you blow everything you got. Listen, I lost everything I had one time, and it's so clear to me. I sat in the living room, I closed the front drapes, and I sat in the dark in a great big chair, probably for a better part of a month. I was so despondent. I had lost. And then, I don't know what moved me, but I got moved. I went and I got 2 long-playing records. Earl Nightingale's narration, not condensed narration, is narration of the book As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. And I put those records on and I started to play them. I got up, I opened the curtains, and I went and bought a brand new Cadillac car. I didn't have any money, but I knew the car would make me feel good when I got in it. And I went to work. That's very clear, man. That was a long time ago. Yeah. Just get up and keep going. If it's big enough, I mean, you'll grow. You don't just grow from your successes. It's the trouble that makes you grow.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
I have a question for Sandy. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, Julie.
You know how when you first started with Bob and you were doing the law and the business, and he comes to you and he gives you the look and says, are you in or you out? Well, there was a time where you said everything worked perfectly, and he got you in front of some people and said you could have made that decision sooner. Mm-hmm. So does everything happen perfectly, or could I be doing stuff sooner than I'm doing it? Does that make sense?
Love it. Of course you could.
Yeah, of course you could. I mean, I do believe things happen in the perfect time and in the perfect way. I do. However, when I was that was at a consultant training, and this was after I had made the decision. I did leave my law practice. I was CEO of the companies for 4.5 months before I left the law, and finishing Creating Thinking into Results. And this was maybe a year or even 2 later, and Bob got me in front of the consultants at the training, and he said, what he wanted me to say, he said, did you leave when you should have, or should you have left sooner? And he wanted me to acknowledge, yes, I could have left sooner, I should have left sooner, and I didn't. I was still absolutely convinced that it wasn't the right time. And so he called me a liar in front of the whole room. And I didn't think I was lying, but my paradigm was so strong around that I couldn't see it. This is, the paradigm is insidious. And, the only thing worse than an excuse is a good excuse. There's a lot of truth in that, because you come up with these great reasons why you shouldn't do what you want to do. And it wasn't until I had written the letter to all my colleagues and my clients and my family, and I explained why I was leaving the law, this career that I had spent 2 decades at. And I was leaving and I was going into this new profession. I had written that letter months before I sent it, Julie. And in fact, right when I came on as CEO. And the only thing that moved me in that moment, I probably would have been months more before I did anything, was Bob just coming up to me, and he's looking at me and goes, what are you doing? And I'm like, what's he talking about? I'm like, hey, I got it under control. I can practice law. I can run this practice group. I can finish Thinking into Results. I got the companies, 19 of them at the time. And I'm like, I got this. And he just gives you that Bob Proctor look. He's just like, what are you doing? Are you in or are you out? And so I'm like, okay, it's time. And I get the letter and I queue it up. And I've got it on my email, ready to hit send. Over 2,000 people it's going to. And I just froze. And I picked up the phone, I called Bob, I got the letter written, I've got it on my email, but I can't hit send. Hit send! Jump! You'll develop wings along the way, hit send! And his voice was just booming, and boom, and I hit it. Yeah. And I still went to the outbox praying it was hung up in my outbox and just like freaking out about how people would react and what would happen. And 24 hours later, I think it was 893 replies. And they were all along the lines of, I wish I could do something like that. You know, I wish I had that kind of inspiration. Excuse me. I wish I was going for something big like that. Can I have a sip of that water? And there are 3.
I'm the water boy now.
And there were 3 that really stuck with me. They were these lawyers that had practiced for like over 40 years. Excuse my voice. And they were so good at what they did, but they didn't want to do it anymore. And they all said essentially the same thing. I would love to do something like that, but I'm going to sit here till the day I die. And I know that's what happened. I know that's what they were going to do. And I just thank God that I had gained enough awareness and someone screaming in my ear that I hit send. That's probably the greatest thing that I think back on and like, thank you, God, for making that decision.
You know, ultimately, I think everything happens as it should. I do. I think everything happens as it should. It happens by law. It may not happen as fast as you think it should, but it's the way it's supposed to happen. And we shouldn't argue with that, because I think the law is always working. I think everything is perfect. It only appears that it's not.
I hope you enjoyed this video. We put a lot of good information up here, and it causes everything in your life to get better. If you'd like us to notify you every time we put a new video up, hit subscribe and then turn on notification. Check out all our videos, and we will notify you when we put a new one up.